There was a time when distance had a different meaning. If someone you loved lived in another city, you could simply tap a screen and ask, "How are you?" There were no blue ticks, no video calls, no instant replies. There was only hope and a letter. You wrote the address by hand, pasted the stamp, and trusted the postman to carry a small part of your life. Days passed, sometimes weeks. Then someone would shout, "Post arrived!" No notification has ever matched that feeling. Today we communicate faster than ever. Yet, have we become better at staying connected? When I left home to study engineering, I experienced that questions for the first time. Leaving home is exciting, but it is also lonely. In those hostel rooms, surrounded by new faces and unfamiliar routines, I missed the ordinary things I had never noticed before. The food at home, the conversations, the reassuring presence of my parents. Every week I wrote to them. If I had a lot to say, I filled pages of white paper. I wrote about my classes, hostel life, my dreams, my worries, and the small incidents that made each week memorable. On busier days, I turned to the inland letter. It looked small from the outside, but once unfolded, it offered enough space to tell an entire week's story. Each letter became a conversation that continued across distance. Mobile phones had already entered the market, but for most students in those days, owning one was beyond imagination. Instead, there was another ritual, the STD booth. If you grew up in India during the 1990s, you probably remember it well. Families waited until late evening because call rates became cheaper. Hostel students stood in line with a handful of coins or a small notebook of phone numbers. The conversations were brief, 3 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, just enough to hear a familiar voice, just enough to know that everyone was safe. The real conversations still happened on paper. A few years later, life took me to Bhutan for my first job. By then, life had changed forever. My father was no longer with us. The house I had always known felt different. The person waiting for my letters was now my mother. There were no inland letters there. So I wrote on plain white sheets, folded them carefully, placed them inside envelopes, and posted them with stamps. Those letters carried much more than news. They carried encouragement, they carried strength. Looking back today, I realize they also carried grief. Neither my mother nor I spoke much about our pain, but somehow those letters said what conversations often could not. She wrote back, I wrote again. Across mountains and borders, ink became our bridge. Years later, when we were together again, I gathered every one of those letters and placed them in a single file. It grew thicker with time. I haven't read them all again. Perhaps I wasn't ready, or perhaps I wanted them to remain exactly as they were, waiting patiently just as they once waited for me. One day, when I grow older, I know I will open that file again, and when I do, I won't just be reading words, I will be meeting a younger version of myself, a son writing to his parents, a young engineer trying to find his place in the world, a man learning that love does not always need to be spoken. Sometimes it is written. Why did we stop writing letters? The answer is obvious. Technology changed. Email became faster. SMS became easier. Mobile phones became affordable. Then came instant messaging. Today, we can send a photograph before the moment has even ended. And that is a remarkable achievement. Technology solved a real problem. It brought families closer across distance. It made emergencies easier to handle. It connected the world in ways previous generations could never have imagined. This is not a story about rejecting technology. It is a story about remembering what it quietly replaced. A handwritten letter was never just information. It carried the writer's handwriting, the pauses between sentences, the mistakes corrected with a single line, the pressure of the pen, the fold marks, sometimes even the faint scent of the room where it was written. Every letter was unique because no two people write exactly alike. It was as personal as a fingerprint. I don't know how many emails I have sent. I don't know how many text messages I have typed. I don't know how many WhatsApp conversations have disappeared into old backups. But I know exactly where those letters are. They still exist, silent, patient, waiting. Perhaps that is the real difference. Digital messages help us remember what was said. Letters help us remember who we were. Maybe that's why even today, an old bundle of handwritten letters can bring tears to our eyes, while thousands of forgotten messages disappear without anyone noticing. So before you leave today, I have just one question for you. Do you still have an old letter that you could never throw away? If you do, tell me whose letter it was. I would love to read your story.